Welcome to TriggerTalk, your place for everything first-person shooters like Battlefield, Call of Duty, and so much more. I'm your host, Sage SammyBoiii, and as always, I'm joined by SammyBoiii. How you doing, man?
I'm doing well, man. How are you?
Doing pretty good. A little tired, but ready to hop in and talk some Battlefield 6. We've got some first impressions on Mirak Valley and Operation Firestorm, and looking forward to talking about that today. So let's jump in. So, Sam, you got anything you want to share with us?
Yeah, so I was lucky enough to get some hands-on time over, it was pretty much, maybe 36 hours ago now as we're recording, on Mirak Valley as well as Operation Firestorm and the new game mode as well, Escalation, for about 4.5 hours between all of that. So it was a good bit of fun. It's just good being back playing it again. I've genuinely had withdrawals after the beta. Like, felt very lost for a while. I didn't really know. I genuinely just haven't. I mean, I've been playing Borderlands lately, so like I've got something now to play. But there was a patch there where I don't think I played a single game of anything for like, I don't know, 2 to 3 weeks. I was just like, I can't. Nothing is going to match that beta. Like, I've thoroughly enjoyed it, and so yeah, it felt good to be back playing again. But yeah, it was a good little session. It's always hard to tell on the Aussie side of things because we don't have 64 Battlefield creators here, so there's always bots in the lobbies, which is kind of frustrating. I know most people probably don't care too much. I hate playing against bots unless like I've chosen, if I'm playing like a campaign, it's one thing, but like if I'm trying to play a multiplayer game, I sort of don't love it. And also for the sake of content, I don't enjoy putting out content when there's like half the kills of bots. Because it just kind of, I don't know what it is. Yeah, it's just like, it's like you awesome game. Yeah, it's like I had a really good game and it's like, well, is it a good game? Because I'm playing against bots. Like, it's not really the same. So it's sort of hard to tell. It's hard to fully gauge these preview events. It was the same with 2042, just because, one, the bots, and two, also, like, all the actual players are very good. So it's like the most unrealistic sort of, I don't know, experience, because everyone's a sweat, and then if you're not a sweat, you're an actual bot. So it's like just not realistic. It's not how the actual maps will play in the full launch. It's like a decent enough representation. You can feel roughly how it's going to play, but it's always just a bit like slower and stuff like that.
That's one of the reasons that developers want to have open betas, because they're playing with other developers and also bots. So you don't get like an accurate representation of that experience. So that's one of the reasons why the beta period is so important, and having alphas and having people like experiencing the game.
Exactly. And like that, the prime example of that is how long have they been testing this game for? And then as soon as it's open beta, people are breaking the game and getting on rooftops in Siege of Cairo. Like, that kind of show. I always see people saying like, oh, how do they launch games with bugs in them? And I'm like, you don't understand that when millions of people get the game, there are different circumstances to what they could test it 12 hours a day. You're never going to find that stuff. And that is the prime example that they've been, even in labs, they've been testing this publicly, essentially, for what, like, when did that start? Like April? Some maybe even March. It's been a while. Yeah. And no one ever found how to get on the roof. And now, in one day, it was like the meta of the game. So it's like, yeah, it's a prime example. I always sort of hear that argument whenever a game launches or there's a new season and like the weapon's a bit bugged or whatever. And it's like, I get that we have the right to be sort of frustrated by that stuff, but also like I feel for the devs, because like you cannot test for that. There's certain things you'll just never know until the game launches.
Again, like talking about the different experiences that you get through playing with creators versus playing with developers and creators versus playing with just the bots versus playing with literally the open public, because developers are going to play it the right way and creators are going to play it the way that is going to give them the best content for coverage. And when you open it up to everyone, people are just going to play how they play. Like there isn't any like you do it this way, you do it this way. It's like if you want to get on that roof, you could probably figure out a way.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like when I'm playing, I always sort of think, oh, it'd be fun to try and like do fun stuff like that. But because I need to get footage, I'm always in just like sweat mode. I'm always just trying to do well because it's more gameplay that I can use. But like that is the thing. When if I was just playing and not recording, I would just do stupid stuff like that because it's fun. So like that's the thing. And like you said, the devs, they're not playing. That's more like a QA testing thing. The devs are playing it and testing it and like trying to play the exact role of an engineer to see if it works. When in reality, no one actually does that. Like even I'm pretty much an engineer main, but I still like I'll run a sniper with my engineer class and stuff. Like it's so yeah. It is funny how different everyone plays it because I've noticed that in previews where. I know devs are playing and they all play very like by the book and play their rules and stuff, and it's kind of fun to see because I'm like, oh, that's how like they have intended it to be played, and I'm here running around as a sniper medic, just
that's
like
the quote-unquote
quick scoping
right way.
people. Yeah, so it is funny how each little like subsection of the community has their way of playing, sort of.
Oh yeah, and I mean that's one on like. The developer side, that's the benefit of having that many people playing your game, and then just on like the gameplay perspective, like that's what makes it so fun is like people don't all play the same way.
Yeah, exactly.
But getting back to Mirak Valley and Operation Firestorm, these are some of the bigger maps that people like the developers have been mentioning that there are bigger maps coming forward, and it sounded like it's what people wanted from the first round of playtests and betas and all that.
Yeah, I would say I'm really happy with... I mean, Operation Firestorm, we didn't need to be validated. I think we all knew that map was good. It's good to see it translated over because, like, say with the 2042, like, Caspian border, it didn't... That's very different because of, like, grapple hooks and wingsuits and stuff, but it didn't play... It just wasn't as good. So I was kind of like, I know this map is good. Will it be as good in this? And it just felt exactly the same. I mentioned it in my first impressions video though, that like, I've definitely had the rose tinted glasses on that map. It's still really good, but I've always considered that like top 3 GOAT map ever. And it's actually not that good. It's a very good map, but I think there's a lot of maps in Battlefield 3 that I think the nostalgia has maybe taken over for me personally a little bit. But it's still like, yeah, I'd already have it in the top echelon of maps in this game, which says a lot because all the beta maps I really enjoyed. So that map didn't really need any, that was just kind of fun to go back and play. But as for Mirak Valley, I was actually really, really happy with it. It felt like a good layout to me, where it is, I'm pretty sure this is the biggest map in the game, at least at launch. Yeah. It doesn't feel that big. Like it's big, but it's not like, it's not annoyingly big. And it feels like there's, if you're in one area and you, say you're in like one of the quieter parts of the map and you want to get to the next area, it's not that far. It's not like it's not a 2042 situation where you've got to go from the city in Hourglass to the stadium and it takes you like literally 10 minutes to get there. It's nothing like that. So I'm just really happy with the layout, and this is kind of what I wanted to see. I know that they can make the small maps now, but I wanted to know, can they sort of translate that over to the big maps? And it feels like that's very much the case. It's a big but really well designed map, and there's a lot of cover, there's a lot of different like points of interest. I think the layout of the flags on Conquest and stuff is really good. It felt good on Breakthrough as well. It does kind of go back to how in a lot of the older Battlefield games, or not so much, but say like Battlefield 1, how we've talked about on certain maps, Rush would kind of start off the map and then make its way into the map.
Yeah.
It's almost the same way as that in Breakthrough. It's not quite, but it's like you started on the very, very outskirts where, to be honest, in Conquest, you're probably not going there. Like it's just like a non-focal point, I guess. But it starts in this really cool, it's like It does actually remind me of a Battlefield 1 map. I'm not really sure. Maybe like...
Interesting.
Maybe that muddy part of St. Quentin's Scar, where it's just like trenches and mud.
Okay.
It kind of reminds me of that, because it's literally just mud and like rubble. There's like zero buildings out that way. So yeah, I really enjoyed Breakthrough on it, and Conquest played really well. And that's with bots, and it's usually slower. So like I feel like it'll actually be a lot more chaotic once there's actual real players in the lobbies.
Yeah. I do find it interesting that we've been... I don't know exactly how to word it, but I think we as Battlefield players have forgotten what like well-designed maps are supposed to be like. Because like you're saying Mirak Valley is big, but it doesn't feel as big as like past maps. And I was looking at some discourse on this, I think on Reddit, and a lot of people came to the conclusion that like we've talked about is like the difference between like the maps that we've gotten to play so far aren't incredibly small compared to past examples of Battlefield maps. It's just that there are more things in the map, so it makes it feel more tight-knit and directed in a way that other Battlefield games just haven't had. And I think it's a good return to form to have this experience of we've got a Battlefield game, we've got these maps, and they are varying sizes and focuses, but they all have things to do in between the points of interest. And there's also like the aisles, the 3 aisles of like we've got the left, middle, and the right, and everything is very focused to push people to play the objective and also to face each other in a way that just makes these maps feel, in my opinion, better. But if you don't like that experience, it may feel small in a way that just isn't realistic in terms of the actual size, but in terms of the layout.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. I think that the actual like surface area of these maps is essentially what we've had. I do think the 2042 ones were all a bit bigger, but that's because they were initially designed for 128. But like some of these maps are around the same size as some of the... I think of like say Rotterdam in Battlefield 5. Like that is probably not that much of a smaller size or different size than Siege of Cairo. It's just that there's so much going on, and like you said, I think the key point to this is that there's always going to be action on the flags. So that's never been an issue really. If you get to the flag, and it's usually there's well always something,
because that's the point of interest. Yeah,
exactly. But it's those moments. Like I just keep thinking back to Siege of Cairo, and I'm on the way from like the A flag to the C flag, and my next combat isn't at the C flag. It's there's 2 gunfights on the way there. That's what makes it fun. That's what you kind of running along, and I'm almost trained after playing 2042 and even Battlefield 5 to just like, I've just captured A, sweet. I'll just run to C now, and there'll be no, like I don't expect anything to happen here. And then it's like, it startles you. You're like, oh, damn, there's a fight going on here. Like in the middle of just some random alley. Like that has it's not really even like a choke point or anything. It's just like a random back alley. And there's just like 5 people shooting each other. I'm like, what the hell is going on here? But that's what makes these maps so good. And that's very much the same with like the Battlefield 3 and 4 maps, in my opinion, that the flags and the points of interest have never been an issue. Especially in something like Breakthrough, for example, where it's even more focused. It's those areas in between that I think if you can nail that and almost like nail... I think a big part of it is to like, for the developers to try to like funnel people a certain direction so that then you do get those like bottleneck moments where you know that people are going... That's how like good players will start to get really high kill games and stuff, because you just know where people are going to funnel through, and that leads to even more of those gunfights in those random back alleys that kind of, in the grand scheme of things, they don't have anything to do with the actual importance of the layout and stuff. But I don't know, that's where I find most of my fun. Thinking back to just random matches on Siege of Cairo, the amount of times I would just be in a random like alley or building where I feel like there shouldn't be anyone there, and there's just like half an enemy team. I'm like, what is going on here? But that's the best part about it, and it also makes every game feel a bit different because you're not just, all right, go to the C flag, now I'm in a gunfight. Like, you don't really know what to expect, and that keeps it all kind of refreshing, I think.
And that's like, in my opinion, that's your job as a map designer, isn't to just kind of like put in a sandbox to just accidentally do things. In my opinion, a good map designer is one that's going to have an opinion on how the layout should be played. It's like, here, I'm going to make this decision intentionally, and it's going to have this reaction. It's going to have this, the repercussion of this action is going to be X, I believe. Like, obviously, when it's an action, things are going to change, and obviously people are going to find different routes and be more efficient as they learn the maps. But you, as a map designer, and I feel like as a game designer in general, you should have an opinion on what you're creating. Like, there should be some level of interaction and experience. And I think that's what was missing with 2042 because of their insistence on 128 players. When you design for 128 players, it's going to put the... it's going to influence you in ways that you don't expect, and mostly it's going to empower you to make these decisions that are not in the interests of focus or gameplay for gameplay's sake. It's going to push you into, crap, I have 128 people that are going to be in this map. Where are they going to be? And that's going to influence your decisions a little bit differently. But when you whittle it down and you have more focus and you have more opinion on how things are supposed to be played from your perspective, I think that's where it starts to be beneficial to a player. And that's what I really enjoyed about the maps that we got to play in the beta, is it felt like there was some opinion in those map layouts, and I really like it. And you can disagree with that opinion. That's what it's like. That's what opinions are. But the fact that there is one and it's not just kind of this empty box, I really appreciate that.
Yeah, I'm very much in the same boat. And I think that's why I felt good about Mirak Valley, is that it all does feel intentional. There's like the center of the map with the two big buildings, but everything around that feels like it almost does funnel people in towards that. But there's these like nice... I found multiple different areas where I was just like, it was technically, I'm just out in a random field, but like there's enough cover and it's enough of a high enough traffic area that I was getting into gunfights just in this random sort of spot on the way to the next flag, even on a bit more of an open map. So it's not even like they're reliant. I think it's probably easier to do that on a city-based map where you can funnel people through buildings and in between buildings and stuff. I think it is definitely harder to do that in an open map, but it feels like they've done that really well. It feels a little bit, and you'll love hearing this, it feels a little bit in the way that Spearhead in 2042 was a very open map, but like you never felt it was just exposed. Different than the other maps. Yeah. There's enough cover, there's enough like just the way that they design the little valleys where it just feels like you should go down that way, and then there's a gunfight down there like that. It's very much in that same mold, I think, where technically speaking, it's a very open map, but I never felt, and there's like 2 jets and 2 choppers at any given time on each team. Like, but I don't even think I died to an air vehicle once. Like, it just felt, I don't know. It felt really, really nice to just feel a map that this is kind of how the old ones were, the more open maps. And I think if they can get all of I think they've proven that they can do that, like the city map now. They've done essentially 4 of them in the beta and they were all good. If they can nail this, which if this is anything to go by, like I think they're going to have all areas covered when it comes to the map design, to have bigger, more open maps, smaller chaotic maps, and they've kind of done them all well. And that has me really excited for like post-launch. Once we get plenty more maps down the line, I think they're only going to improve. If you look at 2042, each map that came out was just better than the last one. And so I feel like they have really learned from that. It's good to say like that. That's one thing with DICE that we've always been a bit like, or it's not even, I would actually put that more on EA than DICE. I think DICE had a bit of a rough time there they lost a bunch of developers in 2042. They were obviously very like inexperienced, so I don't really blame them too much there. If it's someone's like first job, we can't expect them to be making like game of the year. That's just not realistic. But I do feel like now a lot of those devs, it feels like if they are still all there, like they have clearly learned and they're actually really progressing. So yeah, it's good to see, and I'm definitely very pleased. I was kind of skeptical going into this, just thinking, all right, they've done the small maps well, but can they nail this bigger map? And yeah, it felt really, really good to me.
Yeah, and that's the question that we all had going into this is like, first of all, will they have city maps? Like, that was our big thing. And like, two, are they going to be real city maps? And then three, on like you and I wanting these like more focused, smaller scale experience. That was something that we definitely wanted to have. And it seems like we got them. And then as a whole, I think the community was like, is this the only thing that we're going to be getting? Because we didn't get that traditional large-scale map. Now it looks like, hey, they actually exist. Here we go. Look at this. I do have a question for you on Operation like Firestorm. Do you feel like it is a good translation into Battlefield 6? Obviously coming from Battlefield 3 and Battlefield 4. Do you feel like they've done a good job of representing that original map?
Yeah, I think that they have pretty much nailed how it felt. It's one of those hard ones to tell because I feel like I've got a good recollection of Battlefield 4 maps because I've played that more recently. But realistically, I haven't played Battlefield 3 in like over a decade, I would imagine.
Yeah.
And so it is a bit harder to like remember how it played. And the first game, I partly forgot the layout. I was kind of like, I knew the general layout, but there was one area that I thought was actually in a different area of the map and stuff. So yeah, I think they did it really well. I think it has some small changes with like there's more cover and just some slight changes. I think the overall layout's the same, but it plays well. I think it translates well to the Battlefield 6 gameplay where, like I said, Caspian Border and some of those, like, to me, Caspian Border is arguably the GOAT. And like that, it just wasn't good in 2042 because it's a different game that people played it differently. It was way more chaotic. People were grappling onto rooftops and stuff. It just wasn't how it was back in the day. And I think that made a big difference. Whereas this just felt, it really did feel like I was kind of playing like Battlefield 3 remastered, honestly. It felt really grounded and it looks great as well. Like it looks phenomenal, seeing all the smoke in the background and stuff. It's like a really good contrast of this sort of bright sand desert, but then the sky in the background is just black because of all the smoke. So it's, yeah, really happy with it overall. Like I said, I think it's maybe not as good as I remembered it to be, but that's not to do with this iteration. I think it's just straight up nostalgia goggles. It's still, I think I sort of had it on a 10 out of 10 level, and it's probably more like an 8.5 or a 9 out of 10.
Nice. That's like, it's very exciting for me to hear that because as we saw with like 2042, just because you bring a map into a new game doesn't necessarily mean it's going to like be representative of that original view and that original kind of gameplay experience. So it makes me very happy to hear that it is, one, honoring that kind of history of that map, and then also like giving, because when you bring any map to a different game, you also need to make sure it works for that game. Like, and I think that's something that Call of Duty has done pretty successfully throughout its history, and it's good to hear that Battlefield is also doing the same thing.
Yeah, 100%. Because like I think you can go wrong with it if the gameplay is very fundamentally different. Then I think you do have to account for that. And you just mentioned Call of Duty, like in Black Ops 3 when they added Nuketown, it wasn't just Nuketown. They did add the wall running stuff in there, and so like it was it was still Nuketown, but it was sort of accounted for the changes, and it made it like that map was still really good. If they hadn't have had the wall running elements, it would have, just wouldn't have worked. It still would have been good, but the gameplay would have like evolved further than the map did. And so, I think that is really important to adapt to the game and the actual gameplay. And I think that's what they've done, adding more cover and stuff. I think they've just done it really well, where it's because realistically, a lot of the old maps were a bit more open. Because I guess back then, I don't know if it just didn't matter to us that maps were more open and stuff. I don't know if it was just because realistically players were like slower back then. We weren't all like demons like we are now. So
yeah, I mean, if you go back to play Halo now, like everything moves so slowly. So yeah, that is part of it for sure.
Yeah, and so I think that the little changes they've made, I haven't actually like, I almost should go back to Battlefield 3 and like play Firestorm just to see the exact differences, because I don't know necessarily, like I said, it's been so long, I don't actually know the differences. I just know that there is more cover and it's just a very slightly different layout. But I think it felt really good to me, and I don't really have any complaints about it at all, which is good because there's a lot of pressure adding a map like that.
Well, am I correct in remembering that Battlefield 3 is it 32 players total? 16 and 16? Okay.
Pretty sure.
So yeah, there's also that aspect too. Of like, we now have 64 players in this, so we're doubling that with the same map. So I think that's another aspect of like addressing the gameplay and making it work, like you're saying about like Nuketown and the wall running and these different experiences. Like, just like having something as simple as a new mechanic in the gameplay itself will make a map feel different. And it's the same with Battlefield 6 and Battlefield 3. I mean, Battlefield 6 seems like it's more closely inspired by Battlefield 3 than previous games were. But the mechanics in Battlefield 3 versus Battlefield 6 are incredibly different. The expectations that we have on the weapons, how they move, how the characters move, how quickly things are. Like, this is something that has to be taken into account when you are implementing a map that is from a previous game into a new one.
Yeah, 100%. And I think so far, from what I can see, they've sort of really nailed that. And it's obviously a lot easier than with 2042 because the game is a lot more in line with Battlefield 3. Like you said, it kind of feels like they're going for Battlefield 3 vibes with Battlefield 6, which I think we all love. And so probably makes their job a little bit easier too, that they can sort of feed into that and go, all right, well, we're trying to make the game like that anyway, so at least the map can just sort of stay mostly the same rather than having to, like I said with Black Ops 3 adding Nuketown, like that's a fundamentally different map that they probably had to sit there for a while and think like, how do we actually change this to suit the game that we're now adding it into?
Yeah. Moving on from the maps, how do you feel about the new mode Escalation? And just so people know, it's 64 players, 32v32. It takes Conquest's concept and ramps it up further. Instead of 5 control points, there are now 7. In order to score a point, a team must hold a majority of those control points until a meter fills up over time. Once the meter hits 100%, your team scores a single point. This is all from Battlefield Bulletin. As the battle progresses, the number of capture points reduces, shifting front lines and key combat areas, forcing you and your squad to evolve your strategy. And the first team to score 3 points wins. How did you feel with that mode?
Yeah, I think it's sort of hard to tell right now because I think the premise of it, especially you remember when they first like told us about it, and it sounds really interesting and it played fairly well. My only concern is that I'm not too sure if it's entirely balanced in the sense that I think the team that starts winning early just wins. That's my only real complaint with it. Is it's almost a bit of like a steamroll type mode. If like you just start
very
really
momentum based.
Yeah. And which is kind of the opposite of what they were going for. What they told us when we were in LA is that like they want this to be kind of the type of game where it will result in a lot of comebacks and a lot of like final sort of, the score will be 2-2 and it comes down to that final like play. And it didn't feel like that in this playtest. Again, playing against bots and playing with creators, it's a very different experience. But I don't think we had one close match. To be fair, we only probably played, 2, maybe 3 matches of it. Because we essentially were going Conquest Mirak Valley, Breakthrough Mirak Valley, Escalation Mirak Valley. Then we switched the same order in Operation Firestorm. Did one of each, and I think we went back to just Conquest on Mirak Valley. So I think we only played 2 games, maybe 3, but Yeah, I think it felt good. It just feels like Conquest, but then it gets a bit more chaotic at the end. So it's like I don't really have negative things to say about it. It's more that I think I had maybe high hopes for it, and it just does feel like it could be that type of mode where it's just like ends really quickly, and it's just like, like a game of Breakthrough when the defending team just, you're not getting past them and it just ends in the first phase, and it's kind of a bit frustrating. You're kind of like, I would have liked to play the whole map, but we just died in the first phase. Like, it just feels a bit like that, where if there's a good team, like, they're not losing. I think if you start good, the way it essentially seemed to work, I don't know if they can rebalance it, but like, there's 7 flags. Let's just say my team captures 5, and we then have that progress bar sort of moving along towards scoring a point. When we score that first point, I don't know if it's 1 or 2 of the flags get removed, but we still keep the ones we had. So now we're actually at a bigger advantage. There are less flags and we still have more. And now we're still scoring the next point currently. So it's like, I don't know if they could make it so that when a point gets scored, all of the flags get uncaptured and it essentially starts again. Like, you don't have to start the actual match again, but it's just, they all go to neutral again, and then it's a bit fairer. I'm not sure if that would work more, but yeah, it did feel really like every team was kind of winning like 3-0. I don't think there was ever a close match. So that's really my only concern.
Interesting.
With it, but I think the premise of it is really good. It is essentially just Conquest with a twist. So it's like, it's sort of hard to mess that up. But I don't know I think they had hopes this would be like the next Breakthrough where it becomes like a main focus, because Breakthrough obviously came in I think it was Battlefield 1. And that is now like a mainstay. I think they hope the same for this game, but I don't know if it has the same like staying power as Breakthrough unless they make some changes, but it's still a good mode. It's not like I'm not going to play it or anything. It's just maybe not as important as I initially expected, I guess.
Interesting. Do you think that people are going to choose to play this over the other modes? Like, do you think it's going to be successful if they figure out the balancing issues, or do you think it's just kind of like close enough to the other types of modes that it's going to be interchangeable?
That's a good question. I think that realistically, if I'm being honest, if they on launch weekend, they just have Conquest, Breakthrough, Escalation, and Rush playable, I'm probably still playing the other 3 over it. So in that sense, I do fear maybe it won't be as successful. I think the way that they could do it is to like try and really focus on it and do like, I don't know, like more as like a limited time mode type situation where they're like it's like the center stage of the menu or something to get people in the door. Because realistically, I think it's just like people are just going to play Conquest. It is similar enough to Conquest that it's not. It doesn't give me an itch to play it over Conquest, if that makes sense. Like, I think...
Well, it seems like it's just kind of like a remixed version. Like, I could totally see someone in Portal making this kind of mode.
Yeah, exactly.
Using Conquest or Breakthrough as like a beginning.
Yeah, it's like a spin-off of Conquest. It's like not I think the thing with Breakthrough is that it's like very much its own mode. It's like... Yeah, I just think... Really, like when the game starts, it is literally Conquest. There's no any different. It's just the scoring that's different, and then it just removes flags. So it's not that different, and I think that's where it's. Yeah, I'm slightly concerned it maybe won't be as successful, just because it also seems a bit more inconsistent in the sense that if I want, like generally how I am, if I want to play Battlefield, I want those nice long 20-minute games. I don't really want to, unless I'm like trying to play Rush, that's different, but. Yeah, I feel like if I've got an hour, right, to play Battlefield, I probably want to just play 3 games of Conquest or 3 games of Breakthrough. Whereas with Escalation, I might get 3 games, but I also might get 7 because they might end so quickly that like that. I don't know. I don't really. That's something I love about Battlefield is the slow turnover matches rather than Call of Duty are a bit quicker, which is not a bad thing. It's just like I do prefer. I just like being in a game for longer. It's kind of why I like Battle Royales. You just get into it and it's like that. I don't know. It's just like almost even a bit more of a story too. Like you get the you sort of know what's going on in this match. You don't have to worry about relearning the match when you start the next game. Do you know what I mean? So I think that's my issue with Escalation is like if you constantly just every, I don't know, 6 or 7 minutes getting into a new one, it can become a little bit repetitive.
It's interesting that you found it to be like quicker modes because just from that description, it seems like it would take longer. But I totally understand with like if you get with a team that is just like dominating, they have that momentum that is hard to make up against.
Yeah, that's the thing I mentioned in my first impressions is that like in a game of Conquest, right? If even if you get like if there's 7 flags and the enemy team captures 7 of them, that's obviously not good. But you can claw that back. It's pretty damn hard, but like there's not as much of a rush for that. Whereas in Escalation, if they've got more flags than you only have like a minute to 2 minutes to actually flip that, or else they're going to score a point, and then they're up 1-0, and then they still have more flags.
And then you also have to regain those flags. And
exactly.
Build
so you've
up,
still got to do the same
easier.
thing, but then you've actually got to get a point back to then even just get it even. So in a game of Conquest, you can turn the tide and, then you capture the majority of the flags and you're slowly ticking back. It's like a slower burn, but it means you are catching up on them actively. Whereas in this, like, they score that first point, they then have more flags. You still have to rush to try and get those flags back, because if you don't do it quick enough again with that short sort of progress bar, then they're up 2-0 and you're just not going to win from 2-0. So I think that's the issue with it is like, weirdly, they said it would result in more clutch moments, but I feel like it was the opposite. Again, it's maybe just the matches I was in because there are bots. Maybe it was just really lopsided. I don't know, but it just felt like you if you're behind, pretty much if you go down 1-0, you're going to have to be absolutely killing it to just get back to even 1-1, really.
It seems like a pretty big oversight considering like how just based off of that quick explanation, like it's so hard in just a normal mode to like push back on like that momentum that the other team has. Like in Conquest, it is difficult, but it seems more achievable than this mode is, where it's like you gain a majority of the points, hold that up till 100%, and then you gain a point, and then the other team has to push you back, hold the majority of the points, recover to 100% before they can even make that point. And if if your team already owns those points, like, and you have that 100%, like, it's much easier to keep that momentum going if you already are on top. So yeah,
I think that's the thing, is that because the scoring is like technically lower and it's like more crucial, it's higher stakes with the scoring, that results in bigger sways in one direction, I think. Because say it's like 700 to 500 in a game of Conquest and it's counting down to 0. Even though that's a 200-point gap, it's pretty big, but like the actual ratio isn't that far off. Whereas that same match could result in essentially a 2-0 game of Escalation, which is the ratio is way further off. That's you've more than that's like double. They have to win 2 points in a row to even be even at that point. So it's just like, I don't know if maybe it's just a thing that they can tweak with the balancing. My thing is I'm not sure how they actually fix that unless they just remove all flags and make them all neutral when a point is scored or something. But yeah, I'm not sure if they'll do that. I think a better way to do it, which again is probably just completely unrealistic, would be to actually like move the flags. Just make them all neutral and then also switch their locations. So have like 10 set locations on the map where flags can be, and then a point scored, 2 of them get deleted, and then the flags actually move, kind of like Breakthrough, where it moves to the next phase. They just shuffle the flags around, and then it's instantly a fight for those flags again. Because even if they go to neutral, but all of the enemy team is already on 3 of those flags, like they're just going to capture them immediately anyway. So it might buy you a bit of time to try and steal them back, but like if they're already set up on that flag, like you're not gonna, I don't know, you just feel like you're not gonna get them off. So yeah, I think I just need more playtime with it. I don't want to be too critical on it when I'm, again, playing with creators. Maybe the matches I was in, I can't really remember whose team I was on, but maybe like the best players were on the other team, and then with the bots it's just too hard. I don't know, but it definitely felt steamrolly, where either my team was winning 3-0, maybe 3-1 if you're lucky, or vice versa, we were losing 3-1. It just felt, a little bit steamrolly. It felt like one of those games of Breakthrough where the attacking team is just like infinitely better than the defending team, and it just ends in like 7 minutes, and it's kind of annoying because you're like, oh man, that game just started. That was my main sort of issue with it.
Interesting. Yeah, I definitely think they're going to have to do some kind of balancing for this mode, because it seems like theoretically I can see where they ended up here, but I think fundamentally they're going to have to adjust it for the like average audience of, again, we'll see when, like we talked about earlier, we'll see when the broader general audience gets their hands on it, and to see like how that actually changes. But it seems like it's going to be one of the modes that they're going to have to balance. And I do wonder if people are going to choose it if you can just play Conquest and probably get a better experience.
Yeah. And I also am curious to see how, I think on the smaller maps it will actually be a lot better, weirdly, even though it feels like a bigger mode. It's like, I actually think this on Siege of Cairo and maps like that will be really good, because you're closer to the flags, it will be easier to steal them back, and then it might be more chaotic and it might result in those clutch endings. So maybe it's just a bad representation of a map, which you'd think that they would know which ones play well on it. And if it does play better on the other ones, you'd think that they would save this preview for either a different playtest where we're playing back on those beta maps, or they just don't preview it and let it play out in the actual public matches. But that's another thing. Maybe just the map, because it's a bit of a bigger open map, same with Firestorm. Maybe that's why it's harder, because I will say it is generally harder to push back on more open maps. If there's a city map, I feel like you can sneak through those little alleyways and it's a bit easier to like flank people and stuff like that. Maybe that's part of it. Maybe Siege of Cairo will allow, you can be in a squad and 2 of you go down one alley, 2 down the other alley, and you can take out the other squad and then you can capture that flag. Like, maybe that'll work better. So I don't want to be too critical of it just yet. I think it was still fun. It probably sounds like I'm saying it wasn't even fun. It was still fun. It's just more of the balancing of it, where I sort of went into this expecting this to be the next Breakthrough, the next Conquest, the next Rush, where it's going to be in Battlefield 7. Those will be the 4 modes that they launch with. That's the vibe I got from how they introduced this map, or this mode, I should say. But yeah, at least as of right now, I don't necessarily think that'll happen, which isn't the end of the world, by the way. Like, if this doesn't kick off like that and it's still just a fun mode, I mean, many
games have released modes that just didn't get played. I mean, one of my favorites in Battlefront 2015 was what was it? Droid? What was the droid mode? Droid
Cargo?
Hunt?
Droid Hunt? Yeah, Droid Hunt, I think.
Yeah, so the one Cargo was it was the Gonk one where you protect the Gonk and have to like drive it from point to point. So that and Cargo were my 2 favorite modes, and they were smaller. They were on the smaller maps, and I loved it. It was so fun, so competitive. But everyone was playing the other modes. So like they were playing Blast or Galactic Assault. So it wasn't often that I got to play like a really good heated match on that, like deeper into the game's life cycle. But I still loved it. So it's probably going to be similar to this, where like there could be people that really enjoy this specific mode and they're only going to play that mode. But I think if you're going to play Conquest and you join Conquest, like maybe you don't like switch gears on this.
Yeah, that's really my only concern with it. If they want it to be a mainstay, is that, like I said, I think, if I'm being honest, if I want to play Escalation, I probably just equally want to play Conquest, and I think Conquest is the safer option. You know what I mean? It's like, again, maybe not so much on the smaller maps. Maybe it will be really just chaotic, and I'll love it more. So it's hard to tell, but at least on Mirak Valley, I would prefer to play Conquest right now than Escalation, which you would think for a new mode, the new shiny toy, I'd probably want to play that. But yeah, I think I'd still just prefer Conquest. So that's my only concern, is that it might not even be bad. It might just be like, why would I play Escalation when I can play Conquest? And if they want that to be a mainstay, you sort of can't really have competing modes like that. They have to be all unique from each other. That's why, like, Breakthrough and Conquest are just so different than each other. One of them is just completely open. The other one is attack and defend. Like, that is fundamentally a different mode. And I guess Rush and Breakthrough are pretty similar, but it's almost like Rush is the small version of Breakthrough. So it's like, I think all of those just balance nicely, that all three can sort of be in that main menu, and like it's just a nice balance there. Whereas adding Escalation to that, it's a bit like, it's kind of like TDM for me. I just don't. TDM's not a bad mode. I just don't play it. It just doesn't really interest me. That's kind of how I feel. Where most other games have TDM as like one of their main modes, but Battlefield has never had that. And I sort of just feel like that could end up being the case with Escalation, where it's not. They might not remove it in the future games or anything. It just might not take off in the same way that they're probably hoping.
Yeah. And again, like, I fully support them adding different modes and different experiences, because that's what you should do as a game. You should continue to explore these different ideas and go through it that way. I would expect a new mode to be a little bit different than the existing mode. So I do wonder, like, what that's going to be like.
Yeah, I think even a cooler way to do this, I've just literally thought of this on the spot, would have been to, like, in between points getting scored, having like an alternate, so like the flags go away and then it becomes like a mini game of like Rush, where there's an MCOM station and like the first team to go, maybe there's two of them, the first team to blow them up starts with the flags that are still in there or something like that. So you can have those big moments of sway where one team scored the first point, but now the other team was really on the ball and they blew up those MCOM stations, and now so they start with the flags, and now it's actually on the team who's winning, but they're actually kind of on the, they're on the back foot. They're kind of like, oh shit, we're going to lose a point here, even though we're technically winning. We're actually on the negative side of this. I think that's what this mode needs, is like a bigger. They talked about wanting those clutch moments and stuff. I think how it is, it really is the team that sets up well in the first like 3 minutes is just going to lock in and win. And I think if it had some sort of, just some sort of moment in the middle of the game where you can just completely flip the script, almost like how Behemoths in Battlefield 1, it's like that came along and you're kind of like, okay, we're flogging this team, but they've got a Behemoth now, so we actually need to lock in right now, we're going to lose. Yeah. That's something that, again, people hate that, but I love that about the Behemoths. It is unbalanced and it's fun. Like, it's fun because, I don't know, that is what makes Battlefield to me, when you kind of feel like things are going well and then you're like, oh shit, this is not good. That's what I love about Battlefield, that I don't really feel like other games, other than maybe BRs, but like more arcadey games, I don't think they can really do that. And so I think if they could, which they're not going to do that really, but if they could reshape the game to have a moment like that, I don't know how you would do it, but just like something to really flip the script in the middle of the match, then I think it would be, I think it'd be a lot more balanced, because you're either still going to get the same steamroll, which is kind of fine because that's how it was going to go anyway, or the team who's winning is actually now on the back foot and it's like they're in a bit of trouble all of a sudden. Yeah.
Well, it's a little bit like the tug of war, like that. I think that idea of having this kind of like push and pull of attacking and defending and like winning and losing, like having that more interactive experience is probably a better direction to go in than if you win the first point, you're just going to win the whole game.
Yeah, 100%. Because I'm not a fan of modes like that where it's all down to the start, because all it just takes is one team being like slightly more switched on. They don't even have to be better. I think if they just more strategic at the start, and like, you know how in Conquest most people just go to the closest flag first, they capture that one, then they go to the next one. If one team just gets in a vehicle and goes to like not even the center flag but one past that out of 7, so I guess that's the fifth flag, and they capture that, then that distracts the whole enemy team to try and capture that back. But then your team's just capturing the other 4 flags that you have, and you've pretty much won. That's kind of my main issue with it. So yeah, I'm not sure how they fix that. I unfortunately think it probably needs like a fundamental change to the mode rather than like actual balancing tweaks. I don't think you can really tweak it that much, but yeah, we'll see. I do think on the smaller maps it'll probably be a lot better, and I think that's fine. There's plenty of modes that have always kind of been like that, where they just play better on smaller modes or smaller maps. So yeah, I think we just have to wait and see.
Yes. Yeah, I'm excited to get my hands on it and see like what it's like when it actually comes out. But I think it's gonna be. I think I'm gonna choose other modes over this one most of the time. Yeah,
I'd have it 4th on my list out of 4 currently, which
yeah
feels harsh, but it's always hard for them to break in a new mode. Like, I've been playing Conquest for like 15 plus years, so it's hard to get me out of that. And weirdly, Breakthrough did that to the point where that's actually now my favorite. But I think that's a pretty hard thing to do. I don't think really Rush and Conquest have been there forever, and they're still 2 of my top 3 favorites. So it's always going to be. They're always kind of on the back foot from day one, trying to get a new mode to be as popular as the rest, because it has to essentially be like goated for it to have any chance, really.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like I'm gonna be honest here. Like, I'm probably gonna mostly be playing the smaller scale modes with some Conquest thrown in. Like that's my jam. That's how I played the beta, and that's probably how I'm gonna just play Battlefield as a whole.
Yeah, I think a lot of people will be in that same boat as well. If this does have the success that it kind of looks like it will, then a lot of players will be coming from like Call of Duty and Halo and those sort of games where the smaller modes are probably going to be more successful than they've ever been, I'd say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I 100% agree. But let us know your thoughts on what you've been seeing and hearing about the new maps and mode. Would love to hear your thoughts. Comment below if you're listening to this on YouTube, or contact uplinkpodcast.com if you're listening to this wherever you find podcasts. As always, check out SammyBoii's YouTube channels. He's got some great content up there. If you're into Star Wars, check out Star Wars Uplink. And as always, we'll see you later, video gamers.